In fantasy football, the easiest way to win and the easiest draft solution is to draft the best players. But that's usually easier said than done. Today, I want to talk about the number one strategy that's going to allow you to win your fantasy football championship. Let's go. So based off of the value that you're going to get in the early rounds, the middle rounds, and the later rounds, I want to give you the best value picks. Drafting a fantasy football team is a lot like drafting any team. You want stars, you want role players. So you want to have a little consistency, a little boom bust, a couple of late round value guys you can find in the later rounds, and you want to hit on your early round talent. I would describe the early rounds as really the first 4 rounds. And based off of the value in this year's draft, your best pick is usually in round 1, a wide receiver. In round 2, usually a running back. In round 3, a wide receiver. In round 4, a running back. For instance, in round 1, you're going to have guys like Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you're going to sprinkle in a couple of running backs like Brees, Bijan, CMC, but the majority of the value is going to be at the wide receiver position, and regardless of what you pick, usually you can get a top wide receiver. In the second round, it's the exact opposite. You have much better value at the running back position. You have a lot of unproven wide receivers. In round 2, like Drake London, Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison. You got guys like Devonta Adams who has that pedigree but could easily bust, which pains me to say as a Raiders fan, but it could happen. I doubt it, but it could happen. So in round 2, you want to go with a stern running back who's going to, again, not only give you that consistency at the volume, but can give you those high ceiling weeks like Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams. Now, let's move on to round 3. Again, the value is going to be at the wide receiver position. Guys like Cooper Kupp, Nico Collins, Mike Evans. Not really too fond of the running backs in the 3rd round. I would much rather take a wide receiver in the 3rd round, regardless of where I'm drafting at, because they're going to give me not only a high floor, but it's going to have those boom, like Mike Evans, who could easily lead the league in touchdowns. Cooper Kupp, who could easily be not only the wide receiver 1 on his team, but could possibly be the wide receiver 1 in fantasy if he stays healthy, and so does Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua, we've already seen, is starting to get a little hurt. We've already seen training camp footage of Cooper Kupp being the wide receiver 1 on his team and the offense running through Cooper Kupp. So I'm going to lean into that. And Nico Collins, who again, CJ Stroud had one of the best rookie seasons of all time. If he extends past that, the sky is the limit for his Texan wide receivers. And then in the 4th round, you've got really stout running backs who are being slept on. Guys like Kenneth Walker III, James Cook, Alvin Kamara. I would be happy with any of these wide receivers as my wide receiver 1 if I decided to go wide receiver heavy. Now let's look at the middle round. Again, if I started off with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Kyren Williams, and then if I go Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, and let's say Alvin Kamara or James Cook. That's a really nice build to start my fantasy football season off. Now, I just need to hit on those later rounds. In all honesty, this year, it's not the year to punt the tight end position. So what I say is you want to make sure you get one of the main 7 tight ends, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, and Dalton Kincaid. I want to get one of those tight ends in those between 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to get one of those tight ends in those main rounds. And I'm also looking to draft a young quarterback with high-end rushing upside. Guys like CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott. So I want to use the middle rounds to bolster my fantasy team with the meat and potatoes, the quarterbacks and the tight ends. Now in the later rounds, I'm going to classify the later rounds as double digits and beyond, right? So rounds 10 and back. The main thing you want to do in those later rounds is shoot for upside. Getting someone with consistency in rounds 12, 13, someone who can consistently give you 7 to 8 points a week isn't going to do anything for you. You want to shoot for those high-end handcuffs who can ultimately be the running back 1 on their team. Guys who, if the starter goes down, can easily be thrusted into a top 24 back, or they can eventually take over the starter like young rookies. And you also want to look for players who might have a chance at being the number 1 option on their offense. Young rookie receivers or wide receivers who have a lot to prove that are being slept on. You want to look at running backs like Blake Corum. Again, if Kyren Williams goes down, Blake Corum is going to be a league winner. Any running back you put in that Rams offense is going to shine. So Blake Corum not only can be a strong handcuff for Kyren Williams, also look at running backs like Kendre Miller in the New Orleans offense. Alvin Kamara can possibly be the second leading receiver on that team. But again, we've seen him get into legal trouble. We've seen him miss a few games over the last few seasons. If he happens to go down, or if they want to decide, look, Alvin, you're not our future. We decline your option. We want to get the ball to Kendra and see what we have. He's a great option to look into in the later rounds. And then guys like Brian Thomas, who again, rookie wide receiver, we're going to automatically think that Christian Kirk, maybe Gabe Davis is going to lead this offense. If he don't end up being the number one, or if he doesn't end up being a major part of the offense, you can just drop him off and get rid of him. But you need to look for that upside in later rounds. And like I said, you want to look for players who might end up being the number one player in that offense. Guys like Curtis Samuel, we like Keenan Coleman because he's a rookie, so he's going to be highly touted. He's going to have a lot of excitement to his name. Curtis Samuel, we haven't really seen him do much. We've seen flashes in Carolina and Washington, but he's never really been a stout, player on your fantasy team. He's going to have boom bust potential, but he might end up being the number one in Buffalo. And we all see what the number one wide receiver in Buffalo can do. I'm not saying he's Stephon Diggs by any means, but the number one wide receiver for Josh Allen is very important. Also look at Josh Palmer in that Chargers offense. Someone has to be the wide receiver one. Is it Quentin Johnson? Is it Ladd McConkey? Is it Josh Palmer? Someone is going to be the wide receiver one for Justin Herbert, and whoever that is going to have value. And Josh Palmer is getting pushed to the later rounds, and in my mind, he should have the edge as being the number one wide receiver. So why is he being slept on? Pick him up. The Packers wide receivers in general, half of them are pretty much going towards the end, like Dontavian Wicks and Romeo Doubs are going towards the back end. And you got guys like Christian Washington and Jaden Reed at the top end of the draft. Pass on them. Take guys like Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, because we don't know who's going to be the wide receiver one. And imagine getting the wide receiver one in the Packers offense and double-digit round. And as a sleeper, I'm going to say Jalen Polk of the Patriots. I'm not really betting on the Patriots to have a great offense this year, but you never know with Drake May. We've seen rookie quarterbacks like CJ Stroud, and we've seen them take an offense that was bottom tier and catapult them into the top tier offenses of the NFL. So again, grab guys like Jalen Polk. If he's not doing anything week 1, week 2, you can easily drop him and no harm done. So that's my number one draft strategy to win your fantasy football championship this year. Thanks for following along. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in and following along with us on this journey to become the number one fantasy football company in the state of Louisiana.